Joining us now on the line is James Carafano, an expert on military and national security matters, works for the Heritage Foundation. James, how are you?
Hey, good to be with you.
It's good to have you on, boy. We've got what sounds like a very big and credible threat that's been leveled against the United States. We hear that this was intercepted from high-level people. We hear that it is emanating from the Arabian Peninsula. It's been called a major attack that contains specific dates. Are we learning too much about the nature of this threat against us?
Well, we shouldn't be surprised that there's a threat. Look, embassies have been a favorite target from al-Qaeda since before 9/11. The war with al-Qaeda really started with the attack on the two U.S. embassies in Africa in the 1990s, and Benghazi was like, manna from heaven for them. I mean, they did that attack. They had global attention, and you had to think that we just got to do this again. So nobody should be surprised that this is going to happen. I don't think I think the timing is certainly convenient for the administration. They got a lot of attack. I mean, they got a lot of criticism on the NSA, particularly on what's called Section 702, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which basically is the guidelines for gathering foreign intelligence,
right,
including using the internet.
But I guess my question is, granted, it sounds like it's a serious enough threat, but in the last few days, I've heard a tremendous amount of detail, very, very deep detail about how we got this information. And it seems to me that perhaps it's not in our best interest to reveal so much information.
Well, you may be right about that. And clearly, I mean, the administration is, but look, they have a tradition of this. Remember Stuxnet? They leak information to make them look good. So this is totally consistent with the administration, and they're under horrible pressure with the NSA. In a lot of ways, this really kills it. Maybe not on the other. There's two programs. One's under Section 215 of the Patriot Act, which deals with domestic U.S. business records, telephone records. This is foreign intelligence surveillance. I mean, this really puts a spike in the criticism of that program. There's a lot of speculation, and this has been going on for years, al-Qaeda was under pressure in Pakistan. They moved their operational headquarters to Yemen. That's their new base of operations. That's where they plan attacks against the United States and Western nations. That means they got to do a lot of crosstalk. When they do that crosstalk, that apparently opens up opportunities for us to kind of figure out what they're doing.
Yeah, but James Carafano, I mean, most of the criticisms of the NSA programs have come from Edward Snowden's obvious, the release to The Guardian that showed that domestic conversations, domestic data was being stored and it could be combed through later. No one is suggesting, you just said this is surveillance of foreign entities. But you saw people trotted out on the Sunday shows blurring those lines yesterday. You saw Representative Peter King saying, this is why we need these NSA programs. Well, that's rather disingenuous, isn't it, considering this wasn't domestic surveillance?
Yeah, this has been like confusion since day one because they're actually two very separate and different programs.
Do you get the sense, though, that maybe the Obama administration and the supporters of the NSA program are purposely adding to that confusion by hyping up this situation?
Well, both sides do that. I mean, but everybody's done that. And the reality is Americans are mostly concerned about the collection of telephone records. That's a domestic program, 215. Foreigners are apoplectic about the program, what's called PRISM, which is the program under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. So two different groups of people are angry at us. I'm not so sure the foreign people really care about the embassy thing. That's kind of our problem, although the British, the French, everybody else is. Hey, it's funny. I had a meeting with the French Interior Minister, and somebody asked him about, this is on the record, somebody asked him, he said, what do you think of this PRISM thing? And he said, I'm very jealous. He says, I'm jealous that Americans have a better intelligence program than we are, and I'm jealous that you have better oversight from your courts and your parliament. But the funny thing is that then the guy went out like the next day and held a press conference and said, evil Americans, they're eavesdropping on us.
All right, James Carafano is the Vice President of Foreign and Defense Policy Studies at Heritage Foundation, and your boss, Jim DeMint, former senator from South Carolina, he hit the Sunday shows yesterday saying that al-Qaeda appears to be a bigger threat than they were before 9/11. And this sort of flies in the face of the president's campaign stump speech.
Look, I said we'd refocus on the people who actually attacked us on 9/11. And today, al-Qaeda's on the run and Osama bin Laden is dead.
Is Al-Qaeda really on the run, James Carafano?
Of course not. I mean, look, the president went to the National Defense University in May and made the most disingenuous speech I have ever heard any president ever make. We're essentially really lied to the American people by very narrowly telling the truth. He said, we have decimated Al-Qaeda core leadership. Well, that's true, but then they just regrow them, so that really is irrelevant. And then he said, we are focused on people that are directly planning to attack us, which is fine, except the difference between having the capability to attack us and trying to attack us is often just a decision. So people that maybe one day we didn't have to worry about because they didn't have an active operational plot, the next morning they wake up and they said, oh, let's do this. This, in many ways, is President Obama's fault. And this isn't a partisan comment. This is just the reality of how things worked out. The way he did Libya, he opened up, because we did this light touch, we left a vacuum. And there were al-Qaeda groups in Libya, specifically AQIM, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, which were near death. And he opened up vast avenues for them to regenerate themselves. And they have turned North Africa into the front lines in the war on terror. And then Syria, festering the way it is, has really revitalized al-Qaeda in the Middle East. So in many ways, the problem is worse today, but it's because we've been so clueless and indifferent in the way we've handled things in the Middle East that we've created the opportunities for them to get back in the game. It's like we were running a marathon, and a mile 18, we were so far ahead, we said, let's just sit down and wait for everybody else.
Right. Well, James Carafano from the Heritage Foundation, thank you so much for joining us. Great stuff.
Good to be with you.